to a parochial school, and I wasn't going to do what my parents did, which send me to church and not go. I said, well, I'm going to go. And with the AA steps and with the church, it seeped into me slowly, very slowly, almost imperceptibly. And I recall I had a moment of decision. I did go to confession, and the priest said to me, "You're not married in the church?" I go, "No, I'm not married in the church." He says, "Well, get married in the church and come back." And my first thought was, well, the hell with you. You tell me what to do. I mean, this is ridiculous. And then I thought about it some more and said, wait a minute. If I want to follow a faith, it's a personal decision which I'm making. And I like this church. It's comfortable for me. And if they want me to get married by the church, well, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. And that...
How long ago was this?
Oh, that was 20 years ago.
Okay.
That was 20 years ago. I was newly sober, relatively speaking.
Yeah, get that. So now you're telling me that you had discovered you lost your faith and then you rediscovered it there? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I rediscovered it there, and it didn't happen all at once. When I came to AA, I was really...
But you identified you'd lost it. You had a kid. You couldn't meet all the marks of the church, and so you felt like you bailed out, and you got back in. Yeah. You decided to give yourself to church, and things worked out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying it was
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else on that? That's good stuff. Good stuff. Anybody else? One of those four characteristics can block you from God. Anybody blocked from God right now? Are you all connected? You're all connected, huh? Damn, you guys are good. Come on, someone's got to be blocked by one of these. See, the key is identifying it. Like in the instance we talked about the savage mind. What we're trying to relate to is one of the four blocks of God. I've learned there's the one that indifferent, where I once had faith, I lost it. That can happen any given moment. That means you're going to cruise along with God. And then IRS calls you and says, hey, guess what? We're going to seize your accounts. Now all of a sudden God's out the door because something major's happened. Man, that's all my accounts. The IRS has just seized all my accounts. So I had faith, now I've lost it. So I'm a fair weather God friend. And that's what I mean. I got a fair weather God. That means things are going good, God's great. When things are going bad, all of a sudden what happened to God? God's not there anymore. It's only a God of goodness. And God doesn't give me the goodness. Now I'm being punished. Now I'm being tested. That's that tip-off point that I got to cross. So I got to go through that experience. I got to say, yeah, I do believe God. See that I don't. I'm not living by that performance anymore. That I actually have this, say that I have this faith in God, but I'm not living by it. They're just words. See, the faith that I have in God is inside. It's not outside. It's nothing to be proved anymore. It's something I live by. It's going to be okay. Can you say that right now in this moment with your Creator? It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. You know, and it keeps getting better all the time. You can even get in that mode where, you know what, I want to live in a world where it keeps getting better all the time. I don't want to live in a world of breakage and chaos and dissension. I'm out of that world now. I'm into a world of healing. Now I'm into a world of goodness. And in order to get in that world, I got to see where I flip-flop. I got to see where I'm the guy that's got faith, and all of a sudden it's not faith anymore. And I'm doing it right now in recovery. Not then, not 20 years ago. We're talking about today. It doesn't matter what I did 20 years ago. That isn't going to help me today. It isn't going to hurt me today. What I'm doing today, that's what I'm trying to find out. Where is it now that I have faith and I lose it? We know what barbaric having faith and then losing is, but do I know what the subtlety of it means today to me, that I've learned, that I've progressed, that I have talked to God, that I have communicated to a power greater than myself, but now it's gone. All of a sudden it's disappeared. What does that mean to me today? What does self-sufficiency mean to me today? What is it when I'm being intellectually self-sufficient? What does it mean when I'm being defiant or prejudiced today? Not yesterday. I don't want to know when I'm prejudiced 10 years ago. I want to know how am I prejudiced today? How am I being defiant today? It's always about today's life, right? Doesn't that make sense? So it's the subtleties of me today. When you listen to stuff, don't listen for yesterday's. Listen for now. Listen for your life to now, because it's always about the now. It's all it could be about. That's what this message is about. It's about right now. Prime time means now. That's what it means. Very few people even know what it means. It means it's happening right now, not later. It's going on right now, and it's prime time. It's as good as it gets. Pour the last call. There is no better. That's the life I got to live in. I don't want to be in postponed fulfillment. I got to feel I'm in a world where it keeps getting better all the time, and yet it can't get any better, and God keeps making something happen. So I'm trying to discover what blocks me from doing that, and that's what these steps are helping me find. Let's go to 29. I think we're on this particular paragraph right now. Yes, dear.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Oh, well, I don't need it.
It's not for you, it's for the recordings. Remember that. We try to not make you drool, so it's just about the recordings. Maybe we can hear what you're saying.
All right, in line with what you're asking about what keeps you from God, or where are you now, not yesterday.
Right.
So I feel like I go back and forth, and I guess I want to know if that's normal.
Yes.
So that, I've been through a period where when I got into this program, I started to be more aware of God's presence, and I felt like my spirituality grew, something that I didn't really have on a day-to-day basis as I was growing up. And then something will happen, like you said. Let's say, things are kind of going okay, and you see the good, and God is giving you more good, then I feel more inspired, right? I feel more faithful. I feel more believing. And then something will trigger me, and I will turn inward in a negative way, and suddenly God's out of the picture. Suddenly it's me thinking, well, where's God, right? Because something bad has happened, or I've perceived it as bad, or I feel a sense of loss somehow, or maybe I go back to my trauma, and suddenly I feel alone in this world. Where's my...
Go to page 40. Read this.
Who do I lean on?
I get it.
What did you say?
Page 40, first paragraph.
40. Okay.
There's a question, and you remember your question as you're reading. You're asking a question. So I'm going back and forth. What am I supposed to do about that fight that I go about, or something bad happens? I'm going good with God. Everything feels good, but something bad happens by looks of it and by feel of it. So how do I compute that into what God wants for me? It's not easy, but there is a way to do that, and that's what's talked about right here. Go ahead.
So then it is explained that other steps of the AA program can be practiced with success only when step 3 is given a determined and persistent trial. This statement may surprise newcomers who have experienced nothing but constant deflation and a growing conviction that human will is of no value whatsoever. They have become persuaded, and rightly so, that many problems besides alcohol will not yield to a headlong assault powered by the individual alone. But now it appears that there are certain things which only the individual can do. All by himself and in the light of his own circumstances, he needs to develop the quality of willingness.
Now I want you to read that first person, all by myself.
All by myself and in the light of my own circumstances, I need to develop the quality of willingness.
Does that sound different? So
Yeah.
you're saying now, I'm going along, things are good, and then something comes up that appears to be bad. All by myself in the light of my own circumstances, I need to develop that quality of willingness. And then it goes on to keep reading it.
When I acquire willingness, I am the only one who can make the decision to exert myself.
Meaning the exertion is God's will is here, there's something good for me. That's the exertion. That which is happening is part of God's will for my life. There's a lesson for me to learn. There's a transition for me to go to that's going to transform me to the next level. That's the exertion of my will. There's something good here. Of course something bad happened by human standards, by the world out there, about, hey man, shit happens out there. It's like, yeah, you're right, it does. And you can have that world. You can have man's world. I'm going to stay in God's world. I found out I couldn't handle that world. I got to be in God's world. God's world is something bad happens. My job is to exert myself on the quality of that willingness. This is where it's saying my will is of purpose to find God's purpose in the situation for me. Knowing that I found it when it feels good. When the truth feels good. I'll know I found it because there's been a transformation. Something good will come out of it, and it'll melt away anything that I think is bad. That's how I know I found God's will. Does that make sense? And I'm going to exert myself at times to find it because it hurts, because it's uncomfortable. It could be a job. It could be a loss of a relationship. How am I supposed to understand? It could be a death in the family. How am I supposed to understand that? How am I supposed to exert myself on the quality of that willingness? But we're all creating our own lessons. God is not creating these lessons. We create them by the soul power, by the choices that we make. Every choice we make, no matter what it is, whether we reckon it or not, is dictating the next things that are going to happen in our life, isn't it? Every thought we have is transforming, is patterning the thoughts that the next thoughts that we're going to have, and the next thoughts. That's why we want to take note of every moment of where we're at, knowing if I allow a bad thought here, when is it going to lead me to the worst thought of them all? Can I afford one wrong thought? I don't think I can anymore. If I'm aware of it, doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect. See, the ideal is no bad thoughts. And then how well am I going for that ideal? This is saying, look, things are going to happen. And it's telling you need to exert yourself in the quality of your own willingness. That's what it means to make a decision today. It's not just about making a decision, oh, that's done. It's now you perform according to that decision. This looks ugly. Okay, God, help me to see it the way you'd want me to see it, knowing that if there's something good for me here, there's something that's going to good come out of this. And I may not see it right away. It may take 6 months. It may be a year. It may be one of those situations on those bigger deals where you got to go, when the time is right, when I'm not so caught up in it. That answer is always there. I found out for me it's because I'm not developed enough to find it right now. Can I accept that? Can I accept that this is an issue, that there is something good for me out of this? God's will is here, but I just can't see it right now because I haven't developed enough, but I can try and see it. I can work to see it. I can work to develop better so I can see it. And I know that because I'm taking it the wrong way. It's hurting me. It's not supposed to hurt me. It's supposed to inspire me. It's supposed to make me go to the next level. Sometimes challenges come and we look right past them and go to the next level. Well, how'd you do that? I didn't even see it as a challenge. I didn't want it to be a block, so I went right past it. People tell us a secret all the time. You don't put blocks in your way. You don't put limitations. When you're working with God, anything is possible, and everything is in the essence of God's world. Feels good. That's how I know I found it. And now it's saying sometimes you're going to have to exert yourself. You get what it's saying? You understand what that means?
I do. I'm wondering if, yet again, this is part of the, you're creating this new character, and this new character has a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
it's like you really do have to push yourself to not go to the default, okay, here's my mind, here I'm going.
You've done that so many times. Look where it's gotten. It's gotten you nowhere. Why not fight one time? Why not fight to say, no, God's will is here. There is something to learn. There is something good here. Why don't I fight for this for a while and see what happens? Let me give a year of trying this. I've got all these years locked of being in the gutter, of being in the shit world. Why don't I try for 1 year to just work it out? See if I can turn it into gold. See if I can do what they're saying to do. Exert myself in the quality of knowing God's will is here. There's something good to happen. And God, would you show me what it is? And align me with that goodness. And if I can't see it now, just let me trust that there's something good for me here. And trust in the process that's going on and not panic any longer. Because what you're talking about is page 37. So go to page 37, read that. I'm sure I've taken you there before. So sometimes it's just, and even though it sounds the same, it's not the same. Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
This may sound the same to all of you, but it is not. Actually, on this particular book, it said the very last line of 36. Why they would change the print, I have no idea.
You want me to read but the moment?
Yes.
Okay. But
We
the
read it in
moment-
first person.
Right. But the moment my mental or emotional independence is in question, how differently I behave. How persistently I claim the right to decide all by myself just what I shall think and just how I shall act. Oh yes, I'll weigh the pros and cons of every problem. I'll listen politely to those who would advise me, but all the decisions are to be mine alone.
See that we're not living in that world. Now go back to 40. Read that line again.
40?
And go back to 40, first paragraph, and read, when I acquire, it's the bottom of the first paragraph says, when I acquire willingness.
When I acquire willingness.
I'm sorry, go to that one that says all by myself, one sentence up.
All by myself and in the light of my own circumstances, I need to develop the quality of willingness.
Right? And it's saying, don't go back in itself. I'll go back into 37. And this is telling you what you don't want to do. That's what you do want to do. This is what you don't want to do. Go ahead and take that attitude. I'll listen politely. Go ahead from there.
Let's see. I'll listen politely to those who would advise me, but all the decisions are to be mine alone. Nobody's going to meddle with my personal independence in such matters.
So now God's out the door. See, I'm trying to work God out. It isn't like God's out. It's like it's slow. It's a layer. Man, what am I going to do? God, I got to make a decision. God's not here talking to me right now. Make a decision. So I got to make a decision. I got to step it up, and I'm going to convince myself that I'm the only one that can make this decision. Who am I really going to trust anyway? But haven't I tried that formula all my life? I don't know about you, but I tried that stuff for a long time. It never worked. Self-will never worked. I recognize that. I realized when I got to this message, I had an opportunity to be free from the bondage of self. I've given self a shot. It didn't work. Why don't I give something other than self a shot and see what happens? It's worth a roll, right? I would think a year of dedicating to this would be worth a shot to just stand up and look after a year and see how well did it work. Was your will better, or was this whole formula letting God's will be the alignment for your life? Letting God's will be the track for your life. That's the road you're trudging on. And I got to tell you, after a year, there was no way I would ever go back. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, why does it have to be so hard?
Because, you see, that's a question. Go ahead, Henry. Henry's got a question.
Yeah, well,
Henry,
you know what helped me
let him have the mic. But
What
we need to
helped
pass the basket one more time. We need to collect. If you can put some in, do it. If you can't, don't worry about it.
You
Okay?
know what it said there, a whole total had been the misuse of willpower. We had tried to bombard our culture.
Now he's on page 40.
Page 40, bottom of 40. You know, I remember one time, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years ago, we had discussed this at your meeting out there, and yeah, somebody had mentioned, or you had mentioned that, you know, now what happens when you do a lot of prayer meditation, which you start to get to, practice, that helped me a lot because you had mentioned that we try to bombard our negativity with prayer. You substituted the word, instead of attempting, to continue to let the disease take over that negative thinking mind, you start bombarding it with prayer. And then somebody had mentioned this on page step 11, on page 97, which this made a lot of sense to me, Casey. You had it in one of your things a while back. I think I had it somewhere. Maybe Lori has it.
97, go ahead.
It says, you know how the body will fail you for lack of nourishment.
That's the last paragraph of 97.
Yeah, soul of the soul. Well, after listening to that tape, I realized, the more I, what happens when I lack prayer meditation? What is it that I'm lacking? The food. If you don't eat, obviously you can go without eating for a day, and you might get along. You probably get moody. You probably get angry. You probably get tired. You're not going to have that much energy to start anything. And if you go 2 days without eating, you're probably going to feel worse. And the same I found out for me with prayer meditation. I'm leaving God out of the equation every day. So I start feeling moody. I start feeling like there's some kind of nourishment I'm supposed to get from prayer meditation. And I found out through you, Casey, that's really my thought life that gets nourished. And because of the thought life is followed always, the feelings are always followed by the thought life. The more I pray in the morning, the more I have that conscious contact. For some reason, my soul gets nourished, and the disease isn't allowed to get, that negative thinking mind isn't allowed to enter me that often because I have had my nourishment of prayer meditation. So it's vitally to pray and meditate to whatever way you want it. I learned from Casey, whatever you want to pray and meditate, but as long as you do it, it's like you're nourishing your thought life, and in your thought life keeps that negative thinking mind away more often than not. And whenever I go 2 or 3 days without prayer, it's just like food, man. I feel that lack of God. I feel that my mind is taking over, my self-will is taking over, and everything gets a little bit more negative. Like I could have faith if you leave God out of any situation. The other day I was getting gas at a gas station, and the pump just blew up on me. I mean, it just blew up from the top. It just, somebody screwed with it the night before, and the thing just started spraying all over my truck. I ran out, and I said, this thing's going to blow, right? And I had to close my door. I went up to the gas attendant, and I said, hey, come out here, man, the pump just broke. He goes, no. A Persian guy that didn't speak English. He goes, no, the pump is fine, Go on. Like, no,
Wow, you got that shot switch. I always wanted to pull one of those emergency shots.
And he goes, what did you do to my pump?
Oh, yeah,
I
right?
said nothing. I didn't do anything to your pump. It just blew. And he goes, so I called the owner and finally figured out how to turn it off. But it's like $80 of gas at the pump. And it was on my credit card, right? And I said, I need to get to work. You need to give me back my credit. And he's like, no, you did it. And so the owner gets on the phone and goes, we're going to have to look at the tank and see what you did. And right there, I thought about all this stuff because I'm about to leave God out right now. I have faith. I'm about to tell these guys. I said, you know what? That's fine. I'm just going to go in the other pump. I'll pay, fill up my tank, and you guys look at the
figure it out and give me a call.
They called and they said, hey, you know what? We're really sorry. But some kid the night before tried to loosen up the pump, and when you came in the morning, it just burst on you. But those situations, looking back at that thought life, because I prayed in the morning, I had that nourishment,
and the rest,
and I was connected, and I keep being connected because of that. So anyway, thanks.
It's good.
And also I want to thank my friend Lori for giving me a cake. I forgot to thank her.
Oh, yeah.
When you were saying, when we were meditating, you were saying the joy, bring the joy of God. This girl brings me so much joy. I swear to God. Every time we get together, she's just like my best friend, and we get along so good. So thank you for giving me my cake.
It's another relationship you have in recovery
and I met her, and we met at a meeting, and then she was at prime time at the convention, and that's when we both looked at each other and goes, hey, do you like prime time? I like prime time. Let me take you to the guy that started all this, and that's when I brought her here, and she just loves prime time too.
There you go. All right, that's good. What a relationship. How many times you stand around and say, as a man, I got a great friendship with somebody who I really appreciate it in life. Where is it on a social level? That's okay to say. No, is it okay to say? It's healthy to say. It's a good thing to say. It's something we're all looking for. So those relationships that no longer have imbalance, but they have good balance, which perpetuate themselves. Whether it's friends or whatever it is, as long as it has harmonious joint Man, look at that statement. That's a miracle. What you just heard right there is for us to be able to have those kind of relationships. So is that making sense to you about the nurturing of your own thought life, and that you gotta that prayer meditation is like it's like food to your soul.
I just have one comment.
Yes.
And it's not a but, it's just an example. So my head goes, I'm starting to pray, all of a sudden all these other thoughts just start invading. And so I give up, and then I try again, and it's the same thing. So it's like this push-pull. And I'm thinking, I just want to pray. I just want to just be there, focused on the prayer for that nourishment. So you're kind of guarded against, the world, so to speak. But it's like I have these intrusions of thoughts, so I don't have the soundness of mind. I don't.
Whoa! You're measuring meditation. You do not want to measure meditation ever. So you're evaluating whether you're doing it right or doing it wrong. Let me ask you, what is right and wrong in meditation?
No, I didn't mean it that way. What I meant is it's difficult for me.
I know what you're saying. Everybody in the room knows what you're saying. Right, you're saying when you're meditating, thoughts come in. You're trying to be quiet, and your mind is going, and thoughts come in. I'm sure nobody else has ever struggled with that.
No.
But I'm just trying to give you an example of like what can happen. Okay.
So that's
what would be going on at that point? So what is that's going on? Because you're evaluating it. You see what I'm saying? You're in there assessing while you're trying to meditate. That's the problem.
What I'm saying is, what does one do?
Stop evaluating. Stop judging.
So you just keep trying.
You trust that every time you're doing it, you're progressing. And that meditation, think about it. Should it ever be judged?
Well, I wasn't meditating, I was praying. I mean, if you consider that.
Prayer and meditation, right? What does step 11 say? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact. Both are working to improve your conscious contact. Do you think there's a place for judgment in prayer and in meditation? That you should be the judge of it? No. Do you think it would be natural that we start assessing ourselves? That's why I teach you in meditation to what? Think or not think. Desire. See, you're thinking in meditation. That's going to be all of our battles. Whenever we start, that's the way we start out. Okay, God, I'm going to meditation. Let me be meditating. God, it doesn't feel like I'm meditating. Am I meditating? God, I don't know if I'm meditating. Okay, I'm supposed to think about my breath. In breath, out breath. Okay, that's good. No, is that working? Oh my God, it works off here. Tires need trimmed here. Oh, my radio's not working here. Windshield wiper blades needs to be changed. All those things come to all of us. And what happens is we start to learn techniques by asking, search and research, what you just heard. How do you pray? How do you meditate? Do exactly what you did. What do you do when you're doing that? It isn't about, I do this, now what? It's like, what should I do if this is what I'm doing, if I feel interrupted? So you're open to some input. And the input would be, don't judge it. You're doing it. Just keep doing it, and you'll start to notice it quiet down. Biggest thing that I know about prayer meditation is what Henry's telling you. You'll feel it throughout the day feeding. It's like once you start in the morning, you go out in your day, you'll feel quieter. There's a calmness. It may dissipate as you go through the day, but you'll feel that calmness dissipate. Then go the next day, don't meditate. And walk through the day and realize you're already hitting the Mach 10 almost immediately because you just don't have that gradual soundness, that soundness of mind, that quiet place. Once you have it, it kind of feeds to everything. Yes, Laura?
I wanted to just say, if I could, something that you taught me. When my mind does that, and I've been in this meeting with him, meeting meditation with my mind, fault finding what he's saying. And just chatter.
Oh, she's come up to me after meditation and says, can you quiet down a little bit when you're meditating? Because, when you get to that spot, I'm really gone. But then all of a sudden you start guiding again. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, let me make it about you, Laura.
But he taught me something that does really work. For me, it's something you could try instead of saying, please, God, I just want to pray. I just affirm and say, I have a right to be alone with God. And it's just, and he also taught me, when I ask for God, I also affirm. The other side of it is once I ask, I affirm that I am with God. Like I affirm that I'm with you, God. And those things help me a lot because it just sort of makes me realize that my connection is with God and not with my thought, and that the thought just chitter-chatter. You know what I'm saying? That works for me.
Yep, good one there. Yeah, affirm your own truth. When you are in meditation, you have a right to say, I'm one with God. I have a right to be one with God, and so therefore I am one with God. And it isn't be judged. You are. You know what I'm saying? When I realize that God loves me, if I can say that God loves me at any moment, I know that I'm not saying my will. I got to be saying God's will because I want God to love me. I want God to be the ultimate expression of love. There is no fear in love. Love has no opposite. So if God is a state of love, then I know that the state of love is inside me. Can I give it to myself, even in part through God? Can I love myself? Isn't that the greatest question we all have? Isn't that what we're always learning? Isn't that what you're learning how to do? Is to learn to love yourself for who you are, accept yourself for who you are, more and more every day. That's got to be the trip. Why is it around middle life we start to get it? Because we got those experiences, we start to see things, we got a filter on, we got the quality of people, and you know what, we started getting comfortable in our own skin. We started going, you know what, I am a good person, I have a good life, I live a decent life. You know, how come I can't give myself that? We're all hurt, we all have issues, we all have emotional trauma we're going to go through. So now you have a way of life that's going to say, I'll guide that, I'll keep you out of your trauma. So that's what it comes about. I can't live in a state of trauma anymore. That's really what I want in life. It isn't about being a perfectionist, it's just not having to live in a state of chaos anymore. Sanity is defined as soundness of mind. Who cannot come to believe in a power greater than themselves? It's not that difficult to come to believe in something greater than myself. Because what it says is all I need is an open mind, right? God, can you be with me now? That petition right there just opened up my mind by the nature of what I'm saying. God, can you be with me right now? I'm defining me as an entity and God as an entity and asking God to be with me. My mind just opened up. I'm no longer in self because I invited something outside of myself into my mind, into my heart, into my thought life. Every time I do that, my mind just opened up. I never realized that. You open up a lot more than you think. You meditate a lot better than you think, but if you judge it, it's never going to. When has it ever been enough by your judgment? When have you ever been enough to yourself by your judgment? That's when a character really changes. See, I am enough to myself by judgment today, but I had to learn to build a character that way, that I can't find fault with myself. Of course I did my best. I had to get upset with things that I had done and looked at it and go, wait a minute, 100% is 100%. How can I give any more? Why would I be upset with myself when I give 100%? I just start learning to live that way, right? If I give it my best, that's all I've ever asked for. It's all that I'm ever going to be asked for. When I give it 100% case, I'll take care of the rest. It's all that God could ask of me, right? When have I ever done anything when I do things like, for instance, hitting a golf ball, right? I don't hit over a golf ball and think I'm only giving 20% on this one. I'm trying each and every time because it's a passion of mine, right? So why would I get upset after I missed a shot when I'm thinking like I should have tried better, I should have tried harder? I'm already giving 100%. I had to learn to do that in just a silly game and then realize that infiltrates every area of life. Why am I so hard on myself? Why do I demand too much of myself? And step 7 says because it's a lack of humility. Not only am I demanding from myself, but I'm demanding from you too. And I'm demanding too much from this world, and I'm demanding too much from, if I'm looking up to God. The God of me, I'm asking too much all around. So I'm going to start to lower what I'm asking and know that everything's being fulfilled. And when I'm asking too much, I know I've asked too much because I feel frustrated. I feel angst inside. Now I'm asking too much. I'm not doing as much as I'm asking. That's the balancer. Am I with God? If I'm soundness of mind, I feel quiet, then I'm with God. If I invite God in my mind, I just opened up my mind. That's the best I can do. God, can you be with me now? My mind just opened up. That's the most powerful thing any human being can do is open up their mind. Because now anything's possible with an open mind. Anything's possible. With a closed mind, there's only one path that's set out. I'm not enough. I'm not measuring. The closed mind is that which judges me while I'm trying to meditate and grow spiritually. Well, think about that for a second. That's not very nurturing, even to my own self. Why would I judge? And I went through it. I went through it. That's why I passed it on, saying no judgment in meditation. It's clear. There is not meant to be judged. Every time you do it, you are succeeding. Every time you're doing it, you are illuminated and growing, and you're having illumination. Isn't that what you want? That's so it is. And that's in God's world. And I'm just judging myself, and that stops. Right there, the biggest lesson that I could learn from that. There's no more self-judgment, God. I am going to trust in your will. Now you can't exert yourself in God's will, knowing that my problem is I'm judging me. So the quality of willingness is to no longer judge me and to be kind to myself and express love to myself. That would counter everything that's going on against you, and that would be in alignment with step 3. Matter of fact, you can read what Henry was talking about at the end of page 40 there. Once you read that last paragraph on page 40.
Last part once.
I'm sorry, second one. It is.
It is when we try to make.
Aye.
I'm sorry. It is when I try to make my will conform with God's that I begin to use it rightly.
Stop there. Is that making sense now? Now you get more of what that means. Go ahead.
To
Me.
To myself, this was a most wonderful, or to me, this was the most wonderful revelation. My whole trouble had been the misuse of willpower.
Of my willpower.
Of my willpower. I had tried to bombard my problems with it instead of attempting to bring it into agreement with God's intention for me.
So do you think God's intention for you is while you're meditating to say you're not doing it good enough? You're not doing it right? Do you think? I don't think that's God's intention at all. Right? No. Okay, go ahead.
So to make this increasingly possible is the purpose of AA's 12 steps and step 3 opens the door.
So that's it tells you the whole purpose of the 12 steps is to make it increasingly possible that my will and God's will are one. And it's happening now through a way of life. It's not just theoretical anymore. It says I'm going through these stages of these steps, and step 3 opens up the door because it's the first one where I'm going to become an alchemist. I'm going to convert those things that used to be bad into something that's going to be good and opportunity for learning. As soon as I do that, that problem melts away. Now I'm in the solution. I'm learning to live a life that the problem doesn't matter anymore. The answer is always in the solution. What's the solution? I don't give a hoot about the problem anymore. Just tell me the solution, that's what I'll go for 100%. Because I've learned that. That's all I need to know is we'll be in the solution, not the problem. Get out of the problem, which is mind not working properly when I'm meditating, get a solution. What's the solution? I'm not supposed to judge myself in meditation. I'm supposed to love myself there. That's where I get with God and say, okay, God, now that I'm one with you, can we shed some love light on me? Can you show me how to love me? How do I love myself, God, and genuine and connect to it? That's a question I'll ask. You know, and the answers come through other things. They come through all many facets of life, but I got to ask the question. How do I love myself, God? How do I convert this into an asset? Because this looks ugly right now. And I know it's just my limitations, but can you help me to see where the asset is, where the growth is, where the opportunity of growth? I'll never forget when I was going through a situation with my kid when I first got divorced. It was freaking ugly. It was like wearing a wet cloth. Imagine wearing a wet sheet everywhere I went. It was like when I got burned, I got 3rd-degree burns over 20% of my body. They put a sheet on me, you know, a bath sheet on me, and they wetted it down. So it's like when you wear it, it's like an extra piece of skin, right? So I always felt like for like a year and a half, when I was trying to find this God thing, like with my kid, and all this stuff was going on with my kid and divorce, like I was wearing this wet, heavy sheet no matter where I went. And it was so bad, I knew I had to ask something. And what I ask is, how do I get out of this damn pain? I can't seem to not think about anything but the pain of what's going on. And the only answer was, what are the assets? In that situation, how the hell am I supposed to find assets? But they came. They came, and I realized, you know what? I had a moment with my kid where I had unconditional love. I availed myself of God's love. In one moment, I looked at my kid, and because of all the threats, because of all the stuff, I was just completely in love with that child. I mean, in an essence of love that we all should touch, we all should have. And I knew in that moment, in a timeless moment, I felt unconditional love for my son. In that timeless moment, I knew that I could feel this for every human being on this planet. If I worked for it, if I chose, and that was the ultimate goal, that's the way we're supposed to feel about everybody, not just my kid. But this wasn't just about my kid. And so that one lesson, would I go through all of this to have that moment with God, knowing that I truly was one with God, and that I felt that love of God, and I had to say yes. That moment changed me for everything. I felt it in that moment. I can feel it right now as I talk about it. So that changed everything. So would I go through all that for that moment? And at that time, it was yes. And I still, to this day, am learning to accept the pain of that time, to this day. But there's still growth from that stuff this day that I learned from those experiences years later, 10 years, we're going on 10 years, 9 years later. That I'm still learning from that pain. Does that make sense? So and I didn't get the answer that day, did I? But I got relief by just asking, what can I do? Which was, what have you learned from this? Where have you grown? As soon as I looked at where I grew, a couple things came of what came out of this that was good out of this just seemingly terrible situation. Does that make sense? And that was a huge time for me in the midst of just great pain, okay? All right, that's all the time we got for tonight. Happy birthday to Henry with his 10 years. Really good to see you grow and proud like that, my brother. And if you got a birthday cake, will Kathy be back next week?
Yes, Lord.
Howard, we'll let Howard know, and then he'll let Kathy know. I'm assuming. All right. Anybody else got a cake? So does anybody else got any announcements? Jess, go ahead, man.
Bring your chair. You stand over here.
That's it. That's it. Yes, Sheila. Hi, Sheila.
If anyone is on the email list, make sure you give me the email address. I'll send you the application.
Okay, thank you, man. Anybody else? Okie dokie. After a moment of quiet, whoever cares, you can join us in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation,
but to deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Keep coming back, it's worth it.
I love that one. Yep.
Just thought I'd throw it out there. I don't know if you buy it.